Preparation for the United Nations Association's Test of English.
Question 1. One recent notable achievement of multilateral diplomacy in the field of nuclear disarmament is the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW. Explain the historical process leading to its establishment and its major elements.
This essay consists of 6 paragraphs. 1. New Agenda Coalition. 2. Humanitarian impacts of nuclear weapons. 3. Nuclear weapon-free world. 4. Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. 5. TPNW, Article 1. 6. Fundamental problem.
1. New Agenda Coalition. Following the 2010 Review Conference of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, a group of non-nuclear armed nations known as the New Agenda Coalition, NAC, proposed an idea for commencing negotiations for a nuclear weapons banning treaty. Numerous stakeholders, including many civil society organizations, supported the idea even though the 5 major nuclear-armed countries clearly made their opposition known.
2. Humanitarian impacts of nuclear weapons. In 2013 and 2014, 3 conferences were held on the humanitarian impacts of nuclear weapons in Norway, Mexico and Austria, which strengthened the collective resolve to outlaw nuclear weapons. In 2014, the NAC members presented the idea of a nuclear weapon banning treaty to NPT state parties as a supplementary measure to implement Article 6 of the NPT, which requires all state parties to pursue negotiations in good faith for nuclear disarmament.
3. Nuclear weapon-free world. In 2015, the UN General Assembly established a working group with a mandate to address concrete effective measures, legal provisions and norms for attaining and maintaining a nuclear weapon-free world. In 2016, the General Assembly scheduled 2 sessions for negotiations, one for 31st of March 2017 and the other from 15 June to the 7th of July 2017.
4. Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. On July 7, 2017, the working group adopted the TPNW with a vote, with 122 in favor, 1 against, the Netherlands, and 1 abstention, Singapore, while 69 countries, including all of the nuclear weapon states as well as all NATO members except the Netherlands, did not participate in voting. After the sufficient ratifications reached, the treaty entered into force on January 22, 2021.
5. TPNW, Article 1. For those countries that are party to it, the TPNW, in Article 1, prohibits the development, testing, production, stockpiling, stationing, transfer, use and threat of use of nuclear weapons, as well as assistance and encouragement to the prohibited activities. For nuclear-armed states joining the treaty, it provides for a time-bound framework for negotiations leading to the verified and irreversible elimination of their nuclear weapons programs.
6. Fundamental problem. Unlike chemical and biological weapons, the nuclear weapons used to be outlawed only partially, as the NPT prohibits only the proliferation beyond the pre-existing nuclear-armed countries. In contrast, the TPNW now explicitly prohibits all nuclear weapons. As noted above, one fundamental problem of the TPNW is that it is far from universal in its membership, missing more than 60 states including those that are presently benefiting nuclear protection.
Question 2. Nuclear disarmament critically hinges on the role played by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Explain about the IAEA.
This essay consists of 4 paragraphs. 1. IAEA. 2. Atoms for Peace. 3. Nobel Peace Prize. 4. Sustainable Development Goals. 1. IAEA. The IAEA is one of the specialized agencies of the UN system, with a broad mandate to promote the safe, secure and peaceful uses of nuclear sciences and technology, thereby contributing to international peace and security. In our discussion, the most relevant and specific role played by the IAEA must be inspections of nuclear facilities of member states. These inspections have the purpose of ensuring that the facilities maintain the adequate safety and security and that nuclear materials kept by them are strictly for peaceful, not belligerent, purposes, certainly not being weaponized.
2. Atoms for Peace. The birth of the IAEA in 1957 could be attributable to US President Eisenhower, who made the famous Atoms for Peace speech at the UN General Assembly in 1953. The speech brought the nuclear issue, from secrecy for national security, into the public view. Pointing out that no safety protocols or standards had developed, the president stressed that the imperative for the peaceful uses of nuclear energy must be institutionalized.
3. Nobel Peace Prize. Beginning in 1986, in response to the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl, Ukraine, the IAEA increased its efforts in the field of nuclear safety. In 2005, the IAEA, as well as its Director General Barati, was chosen as the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize of the Year, for its work of not only reducing the global-level stockpiles of nuclear weapons, but also curbing their cross-border proliferation. Again, after the 2011 Fukushima disaster in Japan, the IAEA has strengthened its emphasis on nuclear safety.
4. Sustainable Development Goals. More recently, the IAEA has also stressed the importance of nuclear science and technology for development, particularly in the context of achieving many of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
Question 3. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW, entered into effect on January 22, 2021. Explain Japan's contributions, NGOs and the government, to the TPNW. How about European countries?
This essay consists of 5 paragraphs. 1. Ambivalent Japan. 2. Anti-nuclear position. 3. Nuclear protection. 4. Nuclear deterrence. 5. National security.
1. Ambivalent Japan. In Japan, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, have long campaigned for a treaty-based ban of nuclear weapons, and they were in fact among the principal actors in the consultations for the TPNW. In contrast, the Japanese government remained ambivalent, certainly not supportive of the TPNW, and has not joined the signatories to the treaty. The similar contrast, the ideational dichotomy on nuclear weapons, among stakeholders is also seen in Europe.
2. Anti-nuclear position. Many peace activists in Japan, the only country that suffered from nuclear bombings, believe that the country has moral responsibility to highlight the devastating humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons. Their position has been rallied domestically and internationally by various stakeholders, including some leftist political parties. While Japan witnesses a conspicuous rise of hawkish nationalists in the recent past, its general public has been by and large sympathetic toward the anti-nuclear position.
3. Nuclear protection. In contrast, the Japanese government views nuclear protection, via the bilateral alliance with the US, as indispensable for its security strategy. The country's policymakers, as well as foreign ministry officials, seem to believe in the practical value of nuclear deterrence that the alliance offers. In this regard, the provision, Article 1, of the TPNW, particularly the prohibition of the threat of use of the nuclear weapons, is incompatible with the government's policy of nuclear deterrence, which has kept the peace in East Asia during the last several decades.
4. Nuclear deterrence. The two contending ideational camps have competed over time. The end of the Cold War temporarily brought forth a global optimism for humanitarian pacifism in the 1990s. However, the rise of China soon raised Japan's security concern in East Asia, and similarly, Russia's aggressive foreign policy raised concern among the NATO members. In both cases, the precarious security situation has forcefully tilted these countries' policy back toward the strategic reliance on nuclear deterrence.
5. National security. The difference between peace activists, stakeholders, and government officials in Japan, as well as in NATO members, on the TPNW, lies in the question of how strong they perceive the sense of accountability for national security. Compared with outsiders, NGOs, public officials seem to have the greater propensity to value national security high, so that they are less likely to gamble with nuclear disarmament. It is necessary to aim for the arrival point of a world without nuclear weapons, while maintaining and strengthening the international nuclear non-proliferation regime. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.